The neon sign flickered erratically. One moment reading, discount wiring, the next, disco ring. Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, stood outside his latest entrepreneurial venture, arms akimbo, face mask scrunched in something approaching. Pride! Close enough, he muttered, flipping the power switch again. Sparks flew, and the sign finally settled on. Deadpool's Discount Wiring and Chimichanga Emporium. Because nothing says professional like salsa and circuit breakers, he said to nobody in particular. He tossed a half-eaten chimichanga into a customer's open electrical panel and wiped his hands on his red and black suit. Business was booming, if by booming you meant literal small explosions, and customers who were either unaware, too desperate, or too evil to care. His wiring solutions, equal parts duct tape, repurposed vibranium scraps, and the occasional sword, worked mostly. Sometimes a client's microwave learned to walk and sing 80s ballads. Sometimes an evil layer's motion sensors turned into laser tag arenas. But hey, functionality is subjective, right? Wade's favorite client was Mrs. Dobbins, an octogenarian who needed her toaster rewired to double as a security system. Wade 1, home invasion, 0. Least favorite? A brooding ex-villain named Dr. Ohm, like the unit but cooler, he'd said, glaring with a storm behind his eyes. Dr. Ohm was once a shield tech genius specializing in electromagnetic fields, but after a falling out involving budget cuts and a prank with magnetized staplers, he'd vanished, resurfacing with a vendetta and an unsettling ability to manipulate electricity. He believed in precision, order, clean lines and current flow so pristine it practically hummed Mozart. Wade? He believed in results. If a refrigerator worked while also acting as a mild taser, that was a bonus feature. At first, the weird power surges across the city were amusing. Phones vibrated without warning, streetlights blinked Morse code insults, and someone's electric toothbrush had developed self-awareness. But when Wade's newest installation, a private lair for a mid-tier villain named the Mole Rat, exploded. In Technicolor flames, he knew something was wrong. Even he hadn't wired it that badly. Cue. Suspicion. Cue. Dramatic, noir-style monologue with jazz saxophone playing in his head. Someone's messing with my mess, and I don't like competition. Unless it's a pie-eating contest, in which case, game on. Wade investigated in his own way, which is to say, he kicked down doors, asked incoherent questions, and grilled sentient vending machines until one spilled the beans. A mysterious figure in a high-voltage suit had been seen skulking around. His work sites, a showdown was inevitable. It happened at dusk, because of course it did, on the rooftop of an abandoned power station overlooking the city. Wade arrived with a tool belt full of dynamite, a multimeter, a bag of stale churros, and a refurbished Roomba he'd modified into a battle drone named Sparky. Dr. Ohm stood waiting, clad in a metallic suit, crackling with energy. Blue arcs danced across his fingertips like tiny bolts of judgment. You've turned electrical work into a circus act, Ohm snarled. Duct tape? Grenades? You disgrace the current, Deadpool. Wade squinted. You know what else is current? Me? I'm the now. The zap to your sap. Also, I didn't hear you complaining when Mrs. Dobbins's toaster neutralized 3 burglars and grilled a perfect cheese sandwich. Ohm raised his hands. The rooftop shimmered with electromagnetic distortion. Lights below flickered like a pulse. I could shut down the city with a thought. Wade cracked his neck. I could blow up this building with a belch and 2 AA batteries. Your move, Tesla. They collided in a blur of sparks and swearing. Ohm hurled bolts of lightning. Wade dodged, deflected, and retaliated with an electrified plunger and toaster nunchucks. The battle raged across rooftops and transformers, their fight illuminating the city in a surreal light show. Traffic lights played Simon Says, escalators reversed directions. Somewhere, a child's RC car began levitating. At one point, Wade used jumper cables to swing across power lines, cackling, "I am the conductor of mayhem!" while Sparky deployed a smoke bomb shaped like a donut, But even as he cracked jokes, Wade noticed something. Ohm fought not just with rage, but with hurt. This wasn't about sabotage. This was about respect, validation. Ohm genuinely believed. Deadpool was ruining something sacred. During a lull, Wade ducked behind a humming transformer. "Why do you care so much?" he called out. "It's not like I'm applying for an electrician's license." Ohm's voice wavered. "You mock the craft. Wiring is art. Precision. Symmetry. Purpose. You walk in with swords and burritos and somehow win. And people love you for it," Wade peeked out. "Buddy, do you think I wanted this gig? I needed money. I needed something real. Something not just murder adjacent, and shockingly, I'm good at it. People laugh. They remember. I make things that work in my own weird way." Ohm stared at him, blue light fading. "You think chaos is art?" "I think everyone's got a spark," Wade said. "Yours is bolts. Mine is burrito-fueled ingenuity." For a moment, silence, then a growl. "You're still a menace," Wade sighed. "That's fair." They clashed again, this time inside the power station. Wade, improvising as usual, began rewiring circuits mid-battle. Using a blender motor, a disco ball, and 6 feet of Christmas lights, he created an EMP burst that shorted out part of Ohm's suit. It wasn't enough. Ohm surged with raw power, lifting Wade off the ground with a magnetic field that pulled every metal object nearby into a swirling storm. Sparky was caught. In the whirlwind, chirping sadly, Wade, gasping, shouted, "You want to beat me? Fine, but people need me. Not just the villains and crazies, the lonely, the weird. The old lady with the haunted microwave. I make life a little less gray." And then he yanked the fire alarm. Sprinklers activated. Water met electricity. Ohm screamed as arcs danced across his body. His suit sparked, faltered, then collapsed. Wade dropped to the ground, smoking, coughing, and somehow still clinging to the remains of a soggy chimichanga. He approached the fallen Ohm. "Look, I get it. You love this stuff, so do I. We're just different flavors of genius, like vanilla and flaming jalapeno ice cream." Ohm groaned. "You're insane," Wade nodded. "And you're not wrong, but maybe, just maybe, you can teach me a little craft, and I'll teach you how to make a toaster dance." Weeks passed. The city slowly returned to normal, except for the occasional street lamp beatboxing or blender giving unsolicited dating advice. Wade's business remained unconventional, but now it had structure, sort of. Dr. Ohm, reluctantly dubbed co-electro manager, handled the boring technicals. Wade brought the flair. Together they found balance. One day, Mrs. Dobbins visited with a cake that doubled as a defibrillator. "You boys make quite the team," Wade grinned beneath his mask. "We do our best work under resistance." She didn't laugh, but her pacemaker started playing polka. In the end, Wade Wilson learned that even a profession as seemingly mundane as wiring could be a stage for creativity, redemption, and a whole lot of sparks. The world needed people who could color outside the lines, and sometimes quality wasn't about how things looked, but how they lit up someone's life. Deadpool's discount wiring and chimichanga emporium became a weird little institution. People came for the repairs, stayed for the chimichangas, and left with slightly more dangerous but vastly more interesting homes. And Wade? He found a path, maybe not the straightest, definitely not the safest, but it was his, and it glowed in the dark.